Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast 826, the Bahrain Grand Prix review. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
And you know what we do on race review weekends.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do on race weekends. But before covering our first official Grand Prix review of the 2023 season, I have to introduce my co-host, the awesome Paul Charsley. Paul, how you doing?
I'm good. As when I was going through my wardrobe, as I tend to do before these podcasts, I prep for about an hour at least to see what was the right thing to wear. And lo and behold, in the front of my closet was my Formula One blog shirt.
That's
and I
awesome.
thought that very apt, considering when Formula One blog was before, obviously, Parc Fermé. I'm sure you can get into that story for everyone that hadn't heard of Formula One blog. Alonso was a big topic of conversation way back when we were Formula1blog.com.
Yeah.
And he's back. So we're bringing sexy back, I think, is what
That's right.
I'm trying to say with this shirt.
It's awesome. Yeah, if you're new to the podcast, our previous name was Formula1blog.com, and did that for years, and worked with Bernie, and he was fine with it. But when Liberty bought it, it was like, no, 9.
Yep, they didn't like that, and then some others kind of hung out with the F1 name still on them. We were confused. Yeah,
they still were. I mean, technically, I read all the documents. The legal documents and everything, and they have a right to Formula One, F1, and Grand Prix, and Grand Prix, in association. And I still see a lot of them out there with either those iterations. So I don't know. I guess they didn't like us much, Paul.
I don't know. I think we're a threat.
Yeah, right. So you're wearing that old school. And everyone knows I'm a Ferrari fan, but what am I wearing, Paul? I've got your flag.
My flag.
Yeah,
a polo Ralph Lauren shirt.
Yeah, but notice it's papaya orange. And did you see the back of my shirt?
It said a 4, right?
Yeah, but look at the top. Let's see if I can get turned around.
Oh, I didn't see the top bit. Oh, there you go. Wow. Okay.
It's a McLaren shirt.
McLaren shirt.
You can get them real cheap right now.
You're real cheap right now, yeah.
Yeah. So for Grace, I am wearing a McLaren shirt. Yes, I'm a Ferrari guy, and that's how much pain I'm in for McLaren fans, because as a Ferrari fan, you know nothing but pain, Yes. So anyway,
that was painful.
Very painful. Well, let's get into the race. That's
it was great to kick the season off, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was.
I was so looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I was impressed, and I got to say right up front. So we're talking about Bahrain Grand Prix. A unique track, unique surface, very coarse surface. But I have to give props where they're due, because coming out of testing, a lot of the Sky pundits, a lot in the press, printed and or digital otherwise. And these are, I'm not talking about some of the kids in the press. I'm talking about like seasoned veterans that we've been reading for years. Came out of testing, and I admit, I'm impressed. They kind of had it mostly right coming out of testing. They said Red Bull would be the team to beat. Ferrari would be quick and maybe close, and Mercedes would struggle to beat Aston Martin, and McLaren would really, really struggle. Yeah. And that's kind of how that all turned out.
I didn't think they'd struggle as much as they actually did.
I didn't either.
So they just said they weren't going to be fighting in the top 5, but woof.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. Last place, that was brutal. And we'll get into that. But yeah, so kudos to a lot of the Sky personnel and press pundits out there for their
those watching F1 TV will be graced by DC is now part of the F1 TV group. They're actually upgrading. I missed
that. That is an upgrade.
Yeah, it was actually a lot better this week than it was last year, for sure.
Yeah.
So Joylan was there, DC was there, and Laura Winter, who I think she's really good at holding those goofballs, Will Buxton and the other guys together out there in the paddock. She's good at holding them together and keeping them focused.
It's what I was saying. I kind of got beat up because I did in our race report after the race. I was doing a race report, and I said, it's unfortunate. They got rid of Johnny and PDR and stuff like that, and that's fine. But I was talking about it's just unfortunate because I really feel Naomi was sort of parachuted into the deep end. So the Sky Team, they either have Formula One drivers who have driven thousands and thousands of miles in Formula One, or they have professional broadcasters, like Rachel and Pink and, Ted and Simon and those people. And they've all been broadcasting, and they earn their skills and chops through working other series, and so they're all professionals about it. And Naomi's not an F1 driver; she's not a professional broadcaster, and I think her feature work is really good when she has time to unpack, gain that rapport with her people that she's interviewing. She can script those things out so they're entertaining, and I feel like that's good. I think that live commentary is pretty challenging. And I get beat up on that. That I was hating. I don't hate her at all. I'm sure she's delightful. But here's a difference when you take, because they started about the same time. But when you look at Laura, she came from broadcasting other series, so she's a broadcaster.
She sure is, yeah.
And she does a really, really good job. And the questions she asks are additive to the race, and if not, could get to the heart of the matter, so she's done her homework for sure, just as Rachel or Pink would do. But anyway, so that's all I was saying, folks.
Yep. Just because someone's nice
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're qualified for the job.
Yeah.
And just because you've raced around the track doesn't mean you're qualified for the job either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have to have a good knowledge and also be able to portray that knowledge.
Yeah, it's
in a
tough.
succinct manner, which is hard. It's really hard.
It is. It's not an easy job.
No.
And I'm sure any one of the professional broadcasters would tell you that. And I'm sure if you ask people like DC or pick a driver, Anthony or anyone, I'm sure that was Martin. That was a tough transition. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's first up. Good picks by the F1 pundits. As I mentioned, the circuit is it's a coarse out asphalt. It doesn't like tires too much. So the hard compound certainly was always going to factor in or be in play here. And while most teams chose a soft, hard combination, Red Bull had an aggressive strategy with soft, hard. And at the time, Paul, that surprised me. When they came in and put on second set of softs, I thought, ooh, that's going to leave them on the hard compound towards the end of the race. If there's a safety car or something like that, and they've got people behind them on softs, that's going to be difficult, right?
Yeah, I think they were pretty confident in their
They had
pace.
the pace. Yeah.
I think they felt. I mean, we saw it in the practices where they were only half a second off people on softs when they were on the hard, so I think they had it well in hand. Yes, late your yellow flag could have done something, perhaps, especially when Alonso got up to third.
Right.
But I think they felt pretty confident they would be able to handle anything.
Yeah, they knew they had the pace. I didn't know sitting at home, but they did. Well, let's jump into the race. We're going to start off at the top with Red Bull. We've got Sergio Perez in P2, Max Verstappen in P1. Max had a good start, led comfortably from the start to finish in a very dominant performance that, if I'm honest, put a serious marker down for the balance of the season, at least initially in one race. For Max, it was really down to tire management. And like I said, we need to keep in mind that this is just one race, one particular kind of track. And it's a bit of an outlier track with that coarse surface. And we'll see it. But otherwise, it was a perfect weekend, finishing 1-2 for the team. And if you wanted to start a season off on the right foot, I think Max had a great race. And he said he started engaging tire management, after he got the gap he wanted. But clearly, Paul, he had pace, probably could have finished even farther ahead.
Yeah, it helped that Charles got ahead of Sergio, and that and so those guys are fighting for position, and Max. I think Max would have felt more threatened by Sergio than by Leclerc, actually.
Yeah. Right.
So I think once Sergio got shuffled back there, And if you see on the start, Max didn't really help Sergio very much in lining him up. He actually he didn't brake check him, but he backed him up a little bit, and that actually hurt Sergio and made Sergio come back to third place. I'm not saying he did it on purpose, but that's kind of what happened. Sergio. There was a lot of talk about Sergio getting a bad start, but he actually didn't get a bad start at all. He was just kind of balked a little bit by Max, and that allowed the Ferraris on the outside to have a go. So I think, yeah, once that Max was able to kind of predict the gap, he knew he had it over Ferrari. He could take care of his tires and pull away at the same time, and then just babysit his car the whole rest of the race.
Yeah. Well, because of that start, you got Sergio, like you said, lost that position to Leclerc, had to be patient. And then they used that pit stop to get one over on him when he had that second set of softs, right? And Leclerc switched to hards. So he ends up taking P2 back, and he did a fine job of holding on to that. In the end, in my mind, what can we glean from this performance? I think Red Bull looked terrific and has the pace in hand. It's going to be the team to beat, no doubt about it. But F1 would suggest that they're not necessarily unbeatable. How much or will the reduced wind tunnel time impact their in-season development? I don't know. We'll have to see. Time will tell. But Sergio believes that this track is one thing, but the teams, he says, he thought that the teams will be, closer to Red Bull on other track surfaces and layouts, and he may be right.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's kind of a unique track. It's a unique surface. So we've seen ebbs and flows on tracks that really eat up tires, and if you're a car that's kind on tires, then you make hay while the sun shines there. But when you get to a track that you need to get more energy into the tire, that's when they're going to struggle. Not sure Red Bull's going to struggle this year, but it's not going to be a 40-second win every race.
Yeah, right. I agree with you. I think, certain tracks, it brings up a good point. I was listening to the post-race with Sky, and they had Alex Albon for quite a while. Alex spent with him, and they were just talking about the Williams, and I don't remember if it was Nico or Naomi, or one of them asked him, looks like this car's got pace and those kind of things. It was interesting because you and I have talked about this numerous times, more you than I, because you know what the hell you're talking about. But he was saying that, he pretty much said kind of what you've said for several years now. He said that there are certain tracks that the Williams will go to that they're not going to do really well at. There are other tracks, Monza, Spa, those kind of tracks, that they think that the Williams will. And then he said that was kind of how they design their car for those kinds of tracks, remember? And we've talked about this several times in the past, and you've said, nobody goes into their car designing a car for Monaco. It just doesn't happen, right?
Right.
They're designing...
we saw that for years with Jordan, right? Jordan, then Force India, that they designed a slippery car. Their budget was only so much. They can't build a car for all seasons, but they can build a car for a few good races where they can really jump on it and make some good points. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting. Alex had mentioned that, and it took me back several years when we had discussed those, and we have from time to time. So anyway, great weekend for Red Bull. You can't ask for a better start of the season there. 1-2. Looks like they have a lot of pace in hand. Reliability seemed to be there. Max was complaining a little bit of some lockup during shifting.
Yeah, I think he had to complain about something. He had very, very slight niggly problems. I mean, that would be a bit of a scare, but there's always a fix for that. That's right. Yeah, that's just it's really a tuning of the car as it degrades the tires rather than an actual physical mechanical problem on the car.
Yeah, right. That's a fixable thing. Yeah. So, as much as that was, and, look, Red Bull's going to be a team beat. I think we know that. That's cold comfort to Mercedes fans, Ferrari fans, but it is what it is, and they've done a yeoman's job of it. Let's talk about Aston Martin. This was certainly the talking point. Huh? Aston Martin next. I know it's kind of amazing. And you know, everybody talking out of testing was talking about Alonso. And Alonso is now up in P3. You had Lance Stroll in P6, Fernando Alonso in P3. A fantastic result. I will admit that when the pundits were talking about after testing, that looking at Aston Martin's long run pace, they were quicker than Ferrari and didn't suffer the degradation. And some of them were saying they thought they were there, to fight Ferrari and Mercedes and be best of the rest. And I was thinking, I didn't discount it, Paul, but there was something nagging at me, thinking how in Formula One and today on an evolutionary step year. It's not like a radical regulation change this year. This is an evolutionary step of a previous car. And they did make some huge changes. And that's why they did what they did. But I will say that there was a part of me thinking, boy, I hope that's true, what they're saying. But coming from 6th or 7th in the Constructors' Championship and being that far off to coming and beating Mercedes and Ferrari, boy, that's a tall order in today's
Very,
Formula One.
very, very, in maybe nearly unprecedented
Yes, I agree.
deal. But we also got to remember it's not the same team just developing the car. It's, this team is aggressive in bringing in personnel, in adding infrastructure assets to help design the car, wind
Yep.
tunnels, all that stuff. They're literally now creating a works team when before they were not a customer car team, but a garagista team
Yes.
who had a big name brand on it. Now they're actually become, because I mean they've still got a Mercedes engine in the back. They're not building
That's right.
everything, and they're using a lot of Mercedes stuff.
Mhm.
But which to some degree maybe even helps them more than it helps Mercedes, right? But as I said, they brought a lot of people in, being very aggressive. They're building the team up have high aspirations. I think it paid dividends a lot quicker than even they could expect.
Right.
But you get all your sums right. Yeah, I mean, what they say they gained like over 2 seconds a lap
hmm
between this year and last year.
That's unheard of.
Yeah, it is unheard of, as you said,
Mhm.
without there being a fundamental major change where someone just, gets it right and comes out with ground effect car versus, a car without wings. You just don't see that kind of stuff. So
Well,
hats off to everybody there.
yeah, I mean, Lawrence is for real. He's putting serious money in that, and he poached Dan Fallows from Red Bull.
Yeah.
That was Adrian Newey's right-hand dude, and he
Yep.
came in and designed an incredible car. So really, that speculation was absolutely spot on. For Aston Martin and Alonso. When Alonso sort of lost out at that start, got shuffled back a little bit, then got tapped by Lance and fell back. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I was starting to feel this is very routine like last year. And I thought, all right, so all the hype, but maybe not.
Yeah.
However, Fernando, it's like, no, he, it was all well justified. He put the bit between his teeth and took out and hammered out a run to the podium. It just, Fernando, and we've talked about Fernando and for all those people that may have come in to the sport after Fernando, what I would say is halcyon days at Renault or even, briefly at Ferrari. But Fernando is one of those drivers they'll always talk about, that this driver is worth 2/10, 4/10, 6/10 in a car, very much like Schumacher was. And they used to say, if you can get a car within 7/10 of the leaders and you can give that to Schumacher, he'll win, right?
Yeah.
He's the difference, right? And Fernando is kind of that driver. He is that kind of driver, He set about passing George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, some terrific moves on both Lewis and Carlos to secure third place, a fantastic result. How excited was he? He just grinning ear to ear, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I was as well. You had to believe, and certainly it was great to see all the Aston Martin team. They were just over the moon about the whole thing. I mean, the worst thing Alonso did all weekend long was his qualifying lap.
Mm-hmm.
It was a messy lap, and I don't know if they got set up wrong, or he got himself in a tizzy a little bit. I can't imagine he does. He's been there many times,
Yeah.
but that set them back a little bit, and that made us doubt that the Aston actually had the pace that everyone's been touting around.
Right.
And put him on the back foot. I'd have loved to have seen him start third and see what he could have done with the Red Bulls. I think he,
Right.
I know he finished 40 seconds behind Max, but I feel that car was handling phenomenally. I mean, I was watching some in-car stuff today on both Lance and Alonso, and just the turn in speed of that car I thought was better than anybody, honestly. It was, and that allowed him to make that pass on Lewis Hamilton. But just when they needed it, they had a lot of front end on that thing.
Yeah.
And but balance where it wasn't trying to kill him on the exit. The one thing I remember seeing Lance, when Lance ran into Alonso, Lance was actually going to make that corner at that speed.
Yeah.
I was watching the trajectory of the car. He wasn't like understeering into the back of a car like a fool. He actually could have carried that speed through the corner.
Yeah.
It was just Alonso was a different line because he was trying to set up a pass for whoever was in front of him, which is probably
Perez.
Russell at the time.
Or
right?
yeah, Russell. Yep.
Right, because he got shuffled back. Or no, probably was Perez at that time because he got shuffled back because of contact. But yeah, a few times that car, when they needed it, had a lot of front end. And as I said, that enabled him to make that move on Lewis, enabled him to come out of some of the corners when he got Russell as well, come out a little tighter, but still be able to get the grip, power down.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
what that car has. Turn in to mid-corner speed. So I'm really excited to see where it's at the next race, but maybe they can qualify a little further ahead and maybe make the Red Bulls a little bit more nervous than they were able to this weekend.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was a great result. And, and that's good for you because you're the sporting manager of an Aston Martin team.
That's right. We're all winners here.
You're all winners, right? So I met one of your competitors at my live event.
Oh, really?
Archangel, yeah, Alex that works over
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. And he said, hey, one of competitors. I said, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, he sends me pictures of his cars and all that. He's not really competing against us, so to speak. But yeah.
Yeah. But they got an Aston.
They have the Aston, yes, sir.
Yes. Not your Aston, but
yeah.
No. Yeah. So
Definitely not.
Alex is a he's a sweet guy. I love Alex.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. For Lance with broken wrist and toe, he managed to bring the car home in P6. And that in itself should be a good indication that they have the pace, and they're thereabouts with the Mercedes and Ferraris, at least at this track. I mean, this guy's playing hurt, and still managed to get up there in P6. I thought was a very impressive drive, very dedicated drive from Lance, and kudos to him. That had to hurt.
Yeah.
And he played through it. So yeah, great result for him.
Yeah, I think this was the best Lance we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know obviously in a good car, but his attitude and him willing to put up with the pain. I mean, he was on paracetamols and Advils and all that stuff, which I think led to a couple of the brain farts he had and made a couple of errors, right? Full concentration goes away when you've got dealing with those kind of things. But
yeah, it does. Yeah.
Legitimately in the best moment I've seen at Lance out of the car was him and Alonso at the finish line. He was generally happy, smiling, not grimacing, smiling. He was him and Alonso. I mean, they were happy for each other. We didn't see a long-term deal with this relationship. Maybe they're two peas in the pod, and we just don't understand the dynamics. But Lance actually seemed like nearly like a real person.
Yeah.
With feelings and everything. Yeah. So
you mean he has feelings and everything?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He seemed genuine, which is,
he did.
We know a lot of these F1 drivers put up a lot of blockades, but I don't think Lance could hold it back.
No, I did like Sergio Perez in the post-race press conference, jabbing him a little bit when they said, "Well, do you have anything to add to that, Sergio?" And he goes, "Oh no, I think it's great seeing 3 Red Bulls on the podium."
Yeah. That's to the personnel. But hey,
You
that's
got
a
to do what you
smart
got to
buy.
do.
It's a
Yeah.
smart buy.
Yeah.
You pay them a lot of money, you get the intel, and but lo and behold, you make all that back and tenfold with prize money and being
Yeah.
able to fight for wins. Yeah.
In my live event, that was one of the questions about intellectual property protecting that,
Hmm.
they've done this for years. Flavio Briatore said, "I don't know why McLaren ended up stealing the Ferrari, car manual, because all you need to do is just go out and poach one of their engineers. They're going to come over with all the ideas." Well, that's pretty much what happened here. They went out and
Yeah.
poached one of the Lieutenant Aero guys from Red Bull, and he walked in and designed a hell of a car. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. So that happens. You remember, and Aston Martin, like you said, they're aggressive. They want to
Hmm.
win. You remember just a couple years ago. Remember, Aston was accused of being the green Mercedes. Remember that?
Yeah.
When Braun and Williams had dual diffusers, and then magically everybody had dual diffusers,
Hmm.
right? It happens. That's how F1 works.
Yeah.
Um,
And it nearly it works because it keeps the teams more balanced also.
hmm
If one
hmm
team kept all its people and kept all its secrets and was dominant, no one would be able to. So this movement may seem, a little dodgy, but in essence, it levels the playing field to some
It
degree.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. Still
Uh,
waiting for someone to try and poach me. Pretty good.
yeah, me too.
Looking
I
for my
nobody.
payday.
Yeah, nobody wants to poach me, man. I don't know why. I mean, I could design a car.
Mm.
So we've not seen this in a while, but a customer team for Mercedes beats the works team, and that should give you some hope that it actually can be done. McLaren could beat Mercedes if they had the right car. Haas maybe beat Ferrari if they had the right car. I say could because it's much, much easier for me to say that it is to do,
Yeah.
right? And traditionally, you don't find those customer teams beating the works teams very often. And that's why this is a Herculean effort by this team to gain 2 seconds a lap back and to actually beat Mercedes, their engine customer or partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge, huge. So you have to hand it to Aston Martin for that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Ferrari, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Man, it's hard.
That
being
was
a Ferrari
live, I
fan.
think. You just tuned in
Yeah, it
live
was.
to.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard being a Ferrari fan, man.
Yeah.
Charles Leclerc. I notice everybody in the broadcast starting to call him Leclerc.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so maybe
Doesn't
I
seem
should
right
do.
to me, but it's his name, so
It's
whatever.
his name, that's how he says it. Yeah, but I still get a hard time for saying Botas, and Botus and Botas and all that stuff. So I'm a Yankee. That's what we do. Butcher names. Carlos Sainz P4. On the balance, Ferrari seemed to have pace on a single lap, and certainly in the short run. And perhaps that drove some of the strategy for Leclerc to save a set of softs during quali, which did seem to work as he made a good start even better by getting around Checo. So, on first blush, even at the start, thinking, all right, we're in it. That strategy, saving the softs, paid off, gained a position, everything's looking good. But that change of the energy store system and other components prior to the race, which nobody talked a whole lot about, but
Hmm.
they did, and that's a big change. They're only allowed 2 of those a season, and there goes one.
Yeah.
That's a big issue and very concerning if you're a Ferrari fan. But he soldiered on and was running in P2 until he switched to the hards, but Red Bull kept Checo on the softs, right? Ultimately, that allowed Checo to get around him, get back into P2. Ultimately, though, his luck ran out. He suffered a DNF. And for all the Ferrari fans out there, this was like deja vu of last season for sure.
Hmm.
And while the strategy looked a little better there, and it looked like it could work for a podium for sure, the reliability let him down again. And these are
Yeah.
those things that they cannot do.
Yeah, it was painful. I mean, I think they threw everything they had at it. I think the strategy was great to give him a chance. Gave him a chance,
You give him a chance. Yep.
right? And let him fight for it a little bit. Yeah, if they'd followed up with softs again, maybe they could have held Checo back, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Um, and ultimately, it didn't mean anything anyway.
Right.
because of the reliability problem. But I think the biggest thing with Ferrari was the gap between Leclerc and Sainz. That was
Science.
pretty
Yeah.
brutal
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Carlos.
Yeah.
I think not what he wanted to start the season off with. Even if he can't beat the Red Bulls, he certainly wanted to be on the tail of Leclerc. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was
Well,
that was a tough one.
he inherited third when Charles was out, but for whatever reason, he had a lot of tire wear.
Yeah,
And this also is deja vu for Ferrari fans because last year that was a key issue that the team really suffered with, right? In the end, he couldn't hold off Alonso, settled for fourth by holding off Hamilton. Reliability, that's a given. If you went up and down the team and asked them, is that important? Yes, it's a given. Reliability's got to be there. But what Ferrari are faced with, Paul, is how to generate the downforce they need without chewing their tires off the car.
yeah,
And that is a massive, massive task that plagued them last year. And Carlos here, now given it was a very coarse asphalt, maybe the balance of the season looked a little better. And maybe it was just sort of a track sort of issue. But they've got to be able to generate the heat, get them in the window of grip, get the downforce they need without chewing those tires up. And I think that's
yeah,
still plaguing them.
yeah, yeah. Their evolution wasn't as strong as the Aston Martins, obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's this can play into their hands at certain tracks, but they still need to be able to massage the car enough to make it a bit kinder to the tires there. I
Yeah.
think the inherently the car is a pretty good handling car, so that's certainly something to work on. But yeah, I think they're okay. I think predominantly I think they're still the second best car out
Hmm.
there. But it's a fine line.
It
It's a
is
fine
fine
line.
line. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Then we got Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton. Yes.
Get in there, Lewis.
Down in P5, George Russell in P7. Both drivers had a good start, and George's tussle early on with Alonso opened the door for Lewis to go through, which he did. The duo ran pretty much nose to tail there for the early part of the race. George then had to defend from Alonso, and the team, I think at that point, kind of used George to provide that buffer for Lewis,
Mhm.
which is the right call. That's what you would do. That's what I would
Right.
have done. I'm
Yep.
not beating the team up or accusing anyone. But it did leave George finishing down in seventh as Alonso got past him, right?
Yep.
So that was always going to be kind of in the cards. Very tough race for George. But, at the end of the day, you've got that door open. Lewis is thereabouts. He's running, up towards the sharp end of the grid. You've got Alonso coming back up. You want to put that buffer there, and George is there. And they kind of, tried that gambit and it didn't work. So tough race for George.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole team were a bit despondent, weren't they? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
geez, some of the statements coming from the drivers and
Oh my
Toto
gosh.
themselves saying, our concept is failing, and
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't call it failing. They were still in the
Yeah.
sharp
Fourth.
end,
Yeah. Fifth. Yeah.
to the words coming out of their mouth, you would have thought they were McLaren, quite
Yeah.
honestly.
Right.
So I was trying to figure that one out. There's maybe they're half a second off, but you
Yeah.
know, I don't know what they're thinking of doing.
Mm.
They certainly seem to have a big depth of analysis of that car, and it was like we're just going to go with this, and if we at the first race it's not going to kick everyone's butt, then we're going to change everything. And maybe that's the right thing, maybe it's the wrong thing. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like they're as far off. And they were talking about, oh, we're worse off than last year. There's no way they're worse off than last year.
Yeah. I don't think
Um,
so.
yeah, they were struggling big time. I think they've got a
Yeah.
decent car here that they can maybe try and elevate a little bit. So I'm still a little confused with how they're just falling on the dagger right now.
Yeah. That's something I tried to connect the dots over the weekend too. I mean, Lewis ran fourth.
Yeah,
Alonso hunted him down, had a good battle with him,
yeah, it
with
was a
his
good
old
battle, right? I
teammate.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
Lewis
And
didn't give up. I
Alonso,
thought that was the
no.
funnest battle of the whole weekend. Yeah,
Yeah, I do too. Alonso took the podium, leaving Lewis in fourth. But as you mentioned, Toto said it was one of the worst days in racing for the team. And boy, I can remember some really bad
yeah,
days last year. And that's a bold statement, but it's clear to him that the design from last year wasn't fully improved to win races this year. And he's pretty much called for a draconian sort of plan B, which would mean, I presumably, a new chassis. And you can be upset, but this can happen in F1, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
McLaren, you remember, Paul, the MP418, McLaren had a car that was stillborn. It never raced. It never ran. And they had to go back to a previous year's car and make a B spec car that was like the MP417D, if memory serves. But they had to go back to a spec car. And keep in mind, that was an Adrian Newey designed car that was stillborn, right? So it can happen. You can't take the stuffing out of Mercedes. They felt like this is it. Now, the thing for me is, or the challenge for Mercedes is, in my mind, I could be, this is tinfoil hat time, but I have to believe that they're smarter than just fumbling around in the dark with last year's car. They would have anticipated curing the issues on that design. But there's a part of me that thinks they may have also been planning a plan B. I mean, I don't know that, but if they haven't, and they put all their eggs in this basket, showed up and said, yeah, it doesn't work, and Toto says, yeah, this is the worst thing ever, we're going to have to redesign a car. I mean, they've got the cost cap to deal with. They've got wind tunnel limitations to deal with. That's going to present a massive, massive challenge for this team, and most likely put this team squarely in the, quote, rebuilding era.
Yeah, I mean, is it achievable? I mean, with the cost cap and everything like that. In the old days, yeah, maybe it would have. They could throw everything at it.
Yeah,
but
at the old days.
right now, changing concepts and chassis and things like that in the season seems unachievable, quite honestly.
That's why I'm sitting here thinking, if he's calling for some massive change like that, I don't know how that financially works with the cost cap.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
Unless they kind of anticipated.
Right,
this.
right.
Unless they thought through engineering that they could cure, let's call them these 8 things about that chassis, and fab a few pieces that would see that car and that whole concept, a zero pod concept, really come on song. And they showed up, and I would say they did actually improve it. It looks better to me this year than it did last year.
Oh, it's a ton better, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that they have improved it, but it's not a race-winning car. And I have to think Toto and team they're smarter than that. They would have had to come up with something. It wouldn't surprise me if they don't show up in the next race or few races with a different chassis, different side pod, and everything else.
Yeah. They're not making those bold statements, and because they've got to this point, well, we're just gonna. Yeah. Okay, everyone back to the drawing board. There already is a drawing board with something else on there, right? I agree with you there that they were probably at this point, they probably split the teams. One team went with the zero idea, and the other team went another way, and they said, well, we'll go this way because we've got a lot of, a lot of time into this,
resource,
but we're already working on plan B. I think you're right. So I think, a few races down the road, we're probably going to see something fairly radical in the terms of how F1 cars are now. Nothing, they're hard to pick up, but
that's my guess.
Right.
Yeah, that's my guess, folks, because I don't think you can just take this and throw this in the bin and start from scratch where they are now.
No, I mean, it's like us, in IMSA, right? We got 2 cars. The benefit is you can develop both cars separately and then come to a conclusion at the end of a weekend where you want to go with it. That's a great way to go about it, right? So you go this direction, that direction, which one's going to work. Maybe the new direction's going to take a little longer to implement right now. Maybe they found out that started doubting themselves a little earlier in the development, like last year, and decided to split an idea. But that's ultimately what the team looks like it's doing, and will end up. But yeah, it does split resources a little bit, but also if you have the right people with the right brains, you can make a lot of gains rather than everyone going down the same path.
Yeah, I have to think this team is too good and too smart to get caught out like that. Let's see. Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas, P8, Joe Guan Yu in P16. Valtteri had a really good start, Paul. Launched him above the midfield. So he was at the sharp end of the midfield teams and on the tail of the front runners. And he managed his tires really well. He said he managed his tire. He picked his fights. He held Gasly off and drove what I would just call a very measured race.
Yeah.
To bring home some points in 8th place. So it was a good start for the season for him and really for the team, getting in the points early on. That's good. So, yeah, I thought Valtteri did a great job.
No, it's important, as we talked about in the preseason, it's important for Valtteri to be the team leader and to stake his claim that he's a valuable asset to that team as they evolve into Audi. And he did nothing to make anyone second guess that. He was fighting in there with the tough guy. Occasionally, did he get up to 4th or 5th at some point? Obviously, there's some switching back and forth. But yeah, that they've built a decent car, and we know he can put out. Certainly in qualifying, we know he was nearly the match of Lewis sometimes, and he's not going to be that far off. So he can maximize the potential of the car, and it looks like they've come out with something good.
Yeah. For Joe, he looked like he would ensure that Alphas would run pretty much in tandem, but his second set of tires weren't very happy with the car, and he began dropping down the order into P16. He basically said that his race, he got stuck in the DRS train, and then the virtual safety car came out absolutely the wrong time. It worked against him, didn't help him, and so he finished down in P16. I did like the heads-up move from the team on the last lap, seeing that Gasly had fast lap, they duck Joe in, throw on fresh for the last lap, and go out and nip that point out of Gasly's hands. That's a heads-up move.
That is a heads-up move because we know how close it can be, and these 1 points can be the difference. As you always talk about, millions in funding at the end, depending on where the Constructors' Championship goes up, and they know who they're fighting, and that's absolutely one of the teams they're fighting. Yeah,
right. No, that's absolutely right. Speaking of Pierre, let's talk about Alpine. You had Pierre Gasly in P9, Esteban Ocon at DNF. It was a tough day for Esteban, it really was. He had a penalty for being out of position on the starting grid. And when he served that penalty, the mechanics started working on his wing too soon. He had to wait 5 seconds, and they kind of dove right in. And that caused another penalty. And then when he was serving that second penalty, he sped in the pit lane, and he got a third penalty. And at that point, they said, "Oh, hell with it," and they boxed him and took him and saved the engine at that point. But I look on one side, you can say, "Oh my gosh, that's just what an idiot," and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen a lot of people giving him a hard time. He gritted up. As Martin Brundle said, he was looking in his mirrors and probably just missed that stop a little bit, and they called him on it. And then everything else is just trying to, you're so pressured. It's a recovery at that point. Quick, get in and serve the penalty. I need the wing, and then you get out and you're hurrying and you try to get down pit lane. You're speeding. It's just a cascade of errors. It's, this isn't your typical Esteban. I just think it was a bad day at the office.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was all Esteban either. I mean, I think I saw Otmar throw his big box of donuts in the air when the team touched the car when it came in. I mean, that's a big team mistake and something I'm sure they're gonna set right. But those kind of things wouldn't happen 3-4 races into the season. They can crop up first race, new personnel possibly on the pit stop,
could be
new processes in place. These things are more likely to happen these first 2 races. And exactly what happened, and it just added insult to injury. And I was surprised actually that they kept trundling around as long as they did. I thought they'd box him a lot earlier and call it a day. But if there was a safety car, they may have been able to get something back. So I think they were holding out till once that option went away, they just boxed him in the end. So I think it was frustration after frustration. I don't blame Ocon. It was a comedy of unfortunate events, and I think the team's just gonna lick their wounds and be done with it at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Pierre had a bad qualifying, so he started at the back, came up through the field, a great drive up through the field with some impressive driving. The team timed the undercut perfectly there too, Paul. And
Yes.
that moved him into ninth place and into the points. And
Well,
he was,
they took the ballsy move and were first to blink,
yeah,
right? They
yeah,
they
they were.
jumped on it, and that
Yeah,
made massive difference to Gasly,
huge
who
difference.
started last, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, he
Yeah,
did. So that moves him up, and at the end, he was challenging Valtteri for eighth.
yeah, yeah.
So it was a great recovery from him. This is one prediction I got completely wrong. I was really hoping that Alpine's testing confidence that they had during testing, despite their lack of pace and laps in testing, but they were all walking around with smiles, and I was thinking that's got to be a good sign. Maybe they're holding stuff back. They're sort of sandbagging. Ah. And now, because I was saying they've got to come out strong to consolidate fourth in the championship. And
hmm
boy, they've got a lot of work to do on the balance of the season, Paul.
Yeah, a lot of work to go to get fourth now that Aston Martin have made that jump. So I think
Yeah.
fifth is probably a more likely target. Still absolutely achievable. I think Gasly, as much as the team and the driver got it all wrong on one side of the garage, they got it perfect
Yeah.
on the other side. Gasly drove great, measured drive. The strategy calls for both
Hmm.
pit stops were perfect, and I
Yep.
say he was nearly hunting down eighth place at the
Yeah.
end there. Could have happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, tale of two stories, and I'm sure
Yeah.
Gasly's got a little raise in his smile there, knowing that he took first.
Yeah. Yeah. First
First.
score points. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the team, and did it in a great way, starting from the back. So yeah, good
Right.
job.
Exactly. Let's talk about Williams. Williams, Alex Albon P10, Logan Sargent P12. Paul, Alex felt that he could have done more in qualifying, so he was a little disappointed in his qualifying, and so he ended up, being motivated by that and delivered
Hmm
during the race. And while yes, he benefited from the virtual safety car, no doubt about it. Team called him in. I have to think that was a James Vowles led call. Uh, Perfect timing on that. He had pace to secure a point in the team in the first race, and that timing was spot on, and it was good and good for James because when the team called him in, he was able to put on that fresh softs. So then that put him in a great defensive mode, and he was able to hold and consolidate that 10th place by holding everybody behind him with
Yeah,
fresh tires. So it was luck, yes, but that's Formula One, and James made the heads up call. They brought him in, put the softs on, and delivered a great point.
yeah, and
And
Yuki was all over him like a cheap suit at
yeah,
the
he
end there.
was.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know if you saw on F1 TV anyway. They did an interview with Laura and James Voles, and asking him what his expectations for the weekend, and points was not one of them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right. Right.
but the
Yeah.
opportunity, the qualifying pace was better than they expected, and
Right.
the hope just kept rising, and it came with a point, which is super valuable for that
Oh,
team. It's
yeah.
super motivating for Valves and the team.
Yeah.
It's a whole new team this year, and it's going to keep changing, but it gives them so much to build on.
Yeah, it does.
And we know Albon can do a great job, and he
Yeah.
did, and he fought for it. And yeah, maybe his qualifying could have been a bit better, but he couldn't really have had much of a better weekend, quite honestly.
No, and James even said the team needed this. We really
Oh
did.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
unexpected, but absolutely massive for them
Yeah.
for the rest of the year. Yeah,
And that's not to overshadow Logan Sargent. He had a
no,
very good debut race. He was just out of the top 10, but a P12 running close, thereabouts with Alex in his very first race without damaging the car.
hmm
A great result by anyone's measure. And as we talked about earlier, there's going to be tracks that Williams struggle on, and there's going to be tracks that they do better. So it's going to be important to score those points at the venues that they do well at. But overall, I think there's a lot to feel positive about this team, about James, a new boss, Alex and Logan. I think are going to do well. A
hmm
lot to be positive about that. If you're Doralton, take notes.
yeah, yeah. And I think Sargent, I kept an eye on him because
Yeah,
he did a great job. I
yeah,
mean, I mean, his racecraft in traffic and keeping it up and not making mistakes,
hmm,
obviously a big upgrade from Latifi.
yeah, for sure.
Sorry, Nicholas, but it's true. I mean, Logan came
Yeah,
out there and was close enough to Albon and didn't make mistakes and wasn't
hmm,
lost. Didn't look lost out there at all. It looked like he'd already had a season under his belt. I was very
right.
impressed by his debut. I think as the team, maybe the car was better than the team expected, but they should be very happy that Logan backed up Albon's
Yeah.
position as close as he did.
Yeah, absolutely. In the hands of a rookie is P12, so that just tells you the Williams pace there was legit.
Yep. Yep.
Let's see, AlphaTauri, Nick DeVries in P14, Yuki Tsunoda P11. This is where P14 and P11. This is exactly where the team finished in the last race of 2022. And something tells me that may not be a good sign. But Yuki spent quite a while hunting down Albon, but Albon's fresh tires held Yuki off and out of the points. Unfortunately for Nick, Paul, he was left out on the hard compounds, pretty much a sitting duck for Yuki at that point. That's it was what it was. So he fell down to P14. I had the luck on his way, and had they boxed him under the VSC like Albon, I think he would have done much better. So
yeah, I think he was behind everyone though, right? So I think they just rolled the dice and said if he'd have come in and changed tires, he would have been the same as everybody. I'm sure he would have preferred that, but at least he got track position. He got track position. Just didn't stand a hope of holding it.
What did you think of his debut race?
Unexpectedly mediocre.
Yeah.
I think the qualifying and the race, he made some gains once the race started, but my pick was him to, wipe the floor clean with Yuki.
Yeah, me too.
Yuki raised the game a little bit, perhaps, at least for this race. I definitely think his experience is gonna. I think something went a little off in qualifying. Something, and I'm not sure. Only people within the team probably know, but I don't think we saw the best of DeVries at all. I still think he's got it over a barrel over Yuki, but this race was not one that was going to prove my point for sure.
Yeah, no. So. And we said in the preview, Yuki's got to mature. He's got to step up and really, show a different level of performance and leadership if he wants to be long for the F1 world. And on one side, maybe he has. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, one race we've seen him
just one race.
I'm not getting too excited for him right now.
No, I'm not either. Let's talk about Haas. Nico Hulkenberg, P15, and Kevin Magnussen, P13. Kevin was the only driver to start of the hards. That was not a good idea. No. He sank like a stone backwards where he was at the back, and he was never going to recover up into the points from that place. And so that was a problem. Kevin said, they learned a lot from that, though. They learned a lot. And he said, actually, during the race, whatever setup changes they had made during the race coming out of Friday, they'd actually cured a lot of the tire wear that they were having on Friday. So, he wasn't in the points, but he felt like that actually the team learned quite a bit in that race.
Yeah, and that's important, right? This is, we're putting a lot of onus on one race out of, I don't know how many, 57 races, I don't know. But but if you think you're not quite there yet, then you're probably really smart if you keep trying to develop and experiment to try and learn the car and get the car better for the other 124 races or whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
So that's good to hear from them. I if you start off in the hards, I think they were betting on. I think they didn't think they had a lot of hope, so they were kind of rolling a dice on a strategy that if you start off in the hards, then you've got all your options are open for the rest of the race, right? If there's a full course caution or something like that, then it does open you up. But ultimately that didn't pay off. He did fall like a stone, and he just kind of struggled with that placement on the track the whole time.
Right. Nico battled with Ocon and damaged his front wing, and that dropped him backwards. And then he got a time penalty for exceeding track limits.
And they had to change his nose anyway, right? So he lost time there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And look, that wasn't great, but Nico's been out of F1 car for a long time, so maybe we can have a little patience with him.
I think the car just wasn't quite there. I think Hulk did a fine job. I think they both did. I think they're fine. I think they just need to button that car up a little bit.
Yeah, many are saying that this track, wasn't really going to be meant for the Haas, but they do believe that Haas has a lot more pace in hand, and this should be back in the mix in future races. We'll see.
Yep, I can believe it.
Let's see. And then finally, we get down to where are we? We're down
McLaren.
Sorry,
Grace.
Nice, Ron.
It's a shit box.
Yep. That's where we are, folks. Lando Norris, what was he? P17, and Piastri was DNF. Brutal. What a miserable 2 weeks for McLaren. First, they had a poor test, and then an even worse race with Lando boxing 6 times to air up the pneumatic system, and Oscar stopping with an electronics issue. The team said that while they were developing this car, it didn't hit their targets, so they halted car development and then came to testing, came to this race, but they have a host of upgrades that's coming that was the new trajectory for development. So the new kit is going to come out in a few races, which signify the new and improved direction of the car development that they halted. And I think that's a very interesting issue.
Wasn't that kind of similar to what Mercedes are talking about?
Yeah, right.
Similar.
Right.
Not as disastrous on Mercedes side, but certainly different. It seems like the same kind of plan.
Well, and in this case, McLaren is publicly saying that, where Mercedes, I believe, is doing something similar, but it's not saying that. But I don't know. I don't, has it happened before? I don't. It's been a while. So let me go back. This is just mind vomit here, but as I go back and think, okay, so you remember, Paul, that the smaller teams, you remember when we would go to testing, they didn't have the car ready yet. So they'd bring last year's car.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And so even there has been cases where they started the season with last year's car, and then
I mean, a lot in the 70s, that was normal business.
Yeah.
Honestly, the first 2 flyaway races are all last year's cars.
Yeah. So if you're stunned by that, don't be. There is precedent for that in F1. It's happened before, where the car isn't ready, and it wasn't hitting the targets that they set for, didn't launch it. That's kind of what happened, that aforementioned McLaren. It wasn't ready for prime time after testing, and so they came up with a B-spec car using last year's car. That's what they fielded, and they were going to come out, after the first 6 or so races with the new one, and it never showed up, and they never talked about it again. For a good reason. Now, being a Ferrari fan, I was at home going, excellent. But... so not unprecedented. Watch this space. We'll see what happens with this team. Look, they have the right drivers, but expect a very bumpy ride in the next few races. So this is a complete aside. So, I'm trying to get all hip with the young kids and look at the socials and the TikToks and the Twitters and all that. Yeah, I'm trying to. I think
I saw a couple of those.
Yeah, I made a couple. My daughter's, she's like, Dad, you need to make some TikToks, man. You need to put some TikToks on there. And I made a couple, and my other daughter's like, yo, you're numbering, And I had a few people.
I don't even know what that means. Yeah,
it means I had a few people watch it. So anyway. I don't know. So yes, if you go to TikTok at the Parc Fermé, you'll find our TikTok account. I made some videos on there. You can go look at them. So anyway, but I was going through it, and so I saw all these people talking about Lando and McLaren sucking, and poor Lando, because Lando at this point is more popular than McLaren, and so everybody was talking about he's got to go somewhere else, and someone was saying if Lando had the chance to go to Red Bull next year, would he do it? And there was like, oh, heck no, because Max is there, and Max is the only driver that can drive that car because it's designed around him, and Lando wouldn't want that challenge. And I'm sitting there thinking, are you new to F1? Are you kidding me? Did you miss how Lando changed his style to drive at Mercedes, or how Leclerc changed his style to drive at Sauber? Are you kidding me? Yep. Lando would go to Red Bull in a freaking heartbeat. The chance to get into a car that can win races, he didn't give a damn about Max. He'd be there in a heartbeat.
That's right. I mean, these guys aren't there bowing down to Max. Well, I'm a great driver, but I'm not as good as that guy. They literally feel like, you give me the same pair of gloves, I can do the job better.
I'll beat him. Yeah.
I mean, these guys have raced against each other before. It's not like Max kicked everyone's ass, on the ladder up. They all had their chances, and so they still believe they have enough talent to match and beat Max.
Every one of those guys George Russell, Lando, Oscar, any
Charles,
one of those, Charles, any one of those guys are firm believers that if they were in that same car with Max, they beat him,
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. So as you're floating around on the social media, just put a filter on, because some of this crap is so wrong. It's silly. Lando would jump at a heartbeat to go to a winning car, no doubt about it.
Yep.
At this point, he jumped the chance to go to Aston Martin.
Yeah, because I mean, McLaren have had some high points, but they've and yes, they've had some really low points, and so the high points felt pretty good for a while, but ultimately McLaren needs to start winning races and trying to fight for championships.
They do.
If they're in this place right now, that seems like a very, very far away.
Very difficult.
And so for someone like Lando, who every year ticks on, you really do want to get in the car that can win in your prime. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark Webber knows all the players, and he coached Oscar to go to McLaren and ditch Alpine, and fair enough. And I'm sure there are a lot of very legitimate reasons that Mark would have advised him to do so. Mark knows the teams, the politics. He may have felt that for Oscar, the corporate vibe at McLaren would be a better fit for his personality as an up and coming possible champion. There's a host of reasons. But at the end of the day, Alpine scored points and McLaren's at the back. So it's a tough pill to swallow. All right, let's give out some awards. Let's see. The first award we always hand out is Move of the Race. Oh, yeah. All right, Paul, since you and I are simpatico on this, I think I'll just say my move.
With the rest of the world, I would imagine. I would hope anyway. Yeah.
My move of the race was Alonso on Lewis and Carlos. They were mirror images. To Lewis's credit, he blocked that outside and left that inside open. And as you mentioned, Alonso's like, "Oh, I got a ton of front end grip." He just let off the brakes, right down the grip, made that apex, and came out of there and took it.
Yeah. And people may be wondering why Lewis held out there. Well, for the most part, Alonso was out there too. They stay out wide, so the car is straighter going into that tight left-hander, so they get a better angle of a exit.
And get the power down earlier.
Yeah, get the power down, get the car straighter earlier by staying out, by kind of rimming around the outside a little bit. By going straight in, you've got to make a lot more of an initial angle adjustment. But Alonso chose his moment, when he knew where his tires were, and it was a fantastic move. It reminded me of a karting move that obviously we know Alonso and Lewis have karted forever. So I'm sure Lewis is like, that one. That move. One.
Which Lewis himself has done on many times.
Many times,
yeah. So anyway, that was a great. But then it was the opposite. So with Carlos, we got up behind Carlos. Carlos was like, "Aha, I'm going to block that."
Do you think
inside.
someone sent the message on to Carlos? Say, "Hey,
I'm
Lewis,
wondering." Yeah. Because he held close to that inside. And it's not the line you normally would take.
No, not
the line Lewis took is the line you would normally take. So Carlos staying on the inside of that was pretty crafty. But there again, Alonso's like, all right, well, I'll just go around the outside and I'll do the, I'll do the old switcheroo and come up underneath. Yeah, the up and under. Yeah. So it was great. It was a great move. I enjoyed it. All right, next award is Donkey of the Race. Oh yeah.
We'll do it live.
All right, Paul. For this, I'm going to go McLaren.
I'm agreeing with you. Alpine obviously we're in the hunt for the award, but I think overall 2 cars. Yeah. Alpine got at least 1 car in the points, so you got to look at the hopelessness of the McLaren weekend.
Yeah, I think
nice, Ron.
I think it's McLaren. And finally, the final award is Driver of the Race. Oh yeah.
Get down.
All right. So this I had Alonso. No surprise?
Gotta be.
Yeah, gotta be Alonso.
Has to be.
Yeah, there's not. I don't even really have to talk my way through that or try to justify it like I normally do. I think that's a given.
Yeah.
All right. Before we bail out, let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
First up, Gigi the cat, who is an awesome dude.
Yeah.
I know he's awesome. Love Gigi. He's an Aussie, Paul, and you know how you and I love our Aussies.
We do.
We do love our Aussies. And so, for all you Australians listening out there, Paul and I are huge fans of Aussies.
Yeah, love their
Um,
take on life, man.
Absolutely,
Have
the great
fun.
southern land.
Yes.
Exactly, love it. Here's what Gigi the cat says. And it's a great question. So, one of the manufacturers has built their car underweight. Parenthetical, can't remember which one. I think it's Alpine, actually, Gigi. Anyway, this will allow them to run ballast to make up the minimum weight. I think this is significant. How much will this allow for flexibility in this setup? Will it track? Will it be track dependent, i.e., movable ballast, or will there be more advantageous on the tight and twisty tracks versus the low drag type of tracks? Any thoughts? Chance to be occasionally insightful, Gigi. Thanks.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it was Alpine. I think I had read
Okay.
that. I think Otmar said that, and I talked about it in my live. By the way, I did this F1 live thing that I do every year here in St. Louis, and I did record that and post
Oh,
it.
you
So
did
I did, yeah. So
the
you can
video?
listen to it. I didn't record the video,
Oh, okay.
but I recorded the audio of it, and I
I
put the
love seeing you
podcast
on
up,
stage commandeering the audience.
waving
Yeah,
hands and
lots
yeah, and all
of
that stuff.
big
Yeah,
pointy sticks and
I know, I
laser
know.
pointers and stuff. Yeah.
I got done, and the guy's like, "You've presented at a time or two, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah, my whole life, yeah." So anyway, you can listen to that. I did talk about this in that podcast, but Paul, I'm very keen to get your expert opinion on it. So I don't know if the regulations allow for movable ballast. My hunch is they do not.
Well,
Um,
there's a rule that pertains to how much percentage you can have front to rear.
Front to rear,
For
yeah.
sure. And in the old days, if you did have a lightweight car that you could have ballast to it, you could put it anywhere you want.
Yep,
But nowadays they've mandated
the
you can
area.
there's a very small window of where you can put that percentages wise, but still there is some movement allowable, and that's always an advantage no matter what. It does help you. It's a tool for tuning the car. I
Yeah,
mean, ultimately the car has to weigh the same amount, but if you can put the weight where you
where
want
you
it to,
want it.
depending on the track, right? Then you
Yeah,
can put it to the forward, aft a little bit, in the middle, depending on, if you're trying to get the car to calm the front end down, calm the rear end down, make the car more agile.
right.
Absolutely, you can do. I don't think it's a big thing because I don't know how much weight they have to play with, and
Hmm.
because of the restrictive rules with how much you're actually allowed to move it. But it's anything you can maneuver in the car and change from track to track is absolutely an advantage.
Yeah, yeah. Great question. Next question. Joel, you're awesome. I did answer your question on the website, so go check that out. Love your question, by the way. It's a great question. And so if you're Joel and you posted a mailbag, go check that out. I did answer that, Joel. Great question. Let's see. But Daniel asks a question about the proposed rule to eliminate tire blankets next season. What will be the effects on pit stop strategy? With the drivers coming out of the pits on cold tires, I assume it will be very difficult to perform an undercut, and that thus overcutting would be preferred strategy. Do you think eliminating tire blankets is a good or bad idea, Paul?
Um, I think yes, it's true. The undercut will be harder to utilize because ultimately you could undercut, but you kind of lay your cards out there, and everyone knows you've already done it before you really start to benefit from the any kind of undercut, and teams
Mm-hmm.
can kind of thwart that a little bit. So the overcut
Mm-hmm.
will be something. Ultimately, the reason for the tire blankets isn't it something to do with because honestly, you go there
No,
and
it's
in the back of
sustainability. It's the
the
energy.
sustainability.
Yeah,
You
right,
got like
right.
generators keeping the heat up for day, all hours of the day on
Yeah.
those tires, and it's about eliminating that, not necessarily about the product on track, but it does add a new dimension to that, and it adds a bit of a skill back to the drivers. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
deal with it in IMSA. We don't have tire blankets in IMSA. SRO do with Pirelli's on their sports car GT3 series. So in IMSA, it becomes a major factor on um, your strategy and how good a driver, how impact a driver can have on those in and out laps.
Yeah.
Really, really important. I
So
mean,
it's part of your strategy. You have to think about, first of all, you got to get an idea what cold tires grip levels are,
yeah,
and then you have to factor cold grip levels into your strategy.
you
Totally.
you absolutely have, and we won Petit by calling that strategy correct, and the Porsche putting on new tires, yes, but we didn't change tires at all. Went out on hot tires, and the delta between having a new tire and once that came good versus going out on new on warm tires and making all that gap up was tenfold. We gained
Yeah.
20 seconds just by making that call. When
Right.
so yeah, it's an important part. So it's gonna be interesting to see what the F1 teams do with that. So I'm for it. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's the same for everybody.
It is the same. I don't know. My jury's still out on whether they'll get it completely removed. I think the
Yeah.
drivers and teams are really going to ratchet up the safety discussion.
Yeah.
They're gonna lobby hard that it's not safe to do away with it.
Yeah. But so many other series do it.
Yeah, right,
So,
right, right,
you
right.
know, and these cars generate more downforce than any other race car. So inherently they should be able to warm the tires up better.
Quick. Yeah.
But they have to drive to the limit of the tire for a
Yeah,
couple of
right.
laps. And it's going to be a skill level that they do. And they're going to have to play with pressures and things like that. See, if you put lower pressure on it, it's going to help generate the energy. But
Hmm.
then later on in the stint, that tire won't be as good as someone that maybe has to struggle a little bit on the first couple of laps. So
Right.
I like it because, this is kind of the world I live in. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
right. And then finally, Miles asked, during the season, you hear that teams will stop developing this year's car to focus on next year's. How is developing your car for the current season different than developing your car for next season? Are you developing different systems, changing the design, or interrelated systems? I don't understand the difference when the rules aren't changing much between years.
Yeah.
It's a great question, Miles. Go ahead, Paul. I'll let you talk.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk to this too, but yeah, it's there's the difference between development and redesigning. I mean, the teams are always trying to make these cars better and making jumps like we saw with Aston Martin. They're not going to do that
Yeah.
just by working within the same framework and just changing a few bits. When you're kind of set in the season, that's really all you can do. You can't make radical changes because you can't. If you get it wrong, you're already at a Grand Prix. At least
Hmm.
during the off season and building up your car, you can go through many different parameters before maybe you even finalize building a part.
Hmm.
But you still have to have maybe a new theory on how that chassis is going to be, etc. So
Right.
it is, yeah, it's a new chance for a new day when you're developing a car for another year. It's just trying to make the best of what you have and trying to
Right.
make the most of it when you're developing on that car during the year.
Yep. No, you said it better than I would. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the new car is a lot of times it'll have new systems. It'll have different systems or tweaks to systems, tweaks to design that you can do with a blank sheet. That's more difficult to do when you're committed. Mercedes would be a good example of that, right? So, they tried to develop last year's car and they're
Yeah.
stuck, to fix the porpoising because they increase the ride height anymore, they lose a big portion of their
And
downforce.
I think the short off season didn't help that much either.
No, right, right, right.
Yeah.
But anyway, great question, Miles. Appreciate it. All right, well, that does it for this podcast. That's what we think about the Bahrain Grand Prix, but you can tell us what you think about it. You can go over to theparcfermé.com, share your opinion, and a huge, huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We could not and would not do this podcast without you. So we're very grateful for that. For the Patreon supporters, I have a whole series. There must be 50, 60 interviews that I've done over the years with different drivers, different personnel. I've interviewed Zach Brown 2 or 3 times, Steve Matchett. And so for our Patreon supporters, I went through our downshift episodes and pulled those out. And I posted one recently of an older interview with Steve Matchett and I talking about the season
Yeah.
upcoming and everything. So it's a lot of fun. So if you're a
Yeah.
Patreon supporter, go check
Need
that
to
out.
start them going again somehow.
I know, I know, I know.
I've got the boy for you. Nolan Siegel is a kid I've known since he was very young, and he made his Indy Lights debut
Oh
this
wow.
weekend at St. Pete and came second.
Nice.
And he's an American, and I think he's 15. He's
Wow.
he's you want to talk about an American driver that has a future. Nolan is definitely the real deal. So keep your eyes out for Nolan sequel too.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that does it. Be sure to go over to iTunes, give us some love, give us good ratings over there, and we will be back next week to do it all over again. I got to find Grace, get her thoughts on this, and then we'll be back for the Grand Prix of Saudi Arabia with Paul to review that race. And until that time, Paul, it's awesome to have you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on. And we'll do it all over again next week. So until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Gamer, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.